Thank you, Rajdeep ji. And as Priya on the right side started with Delhi, and before we go to up, back to Delhi, I was wondering what is my role, because I was added as speaker yesterday and I got the subtitle after dinner. Now I kind of figured it out. I think Ram Madhav ji and Saurabh in India Foundation said before, Delhi talks to Delhi, take them all over the world and bring them back to India. So that's what I will try to do, because I'll take you to Russia, Ukraine, Washington, D.C., and then, Samuel Huntington and back. When I was told to speak yesterday, initially I looked at the title. It says, Meta Era. Recently, I just read that the Facebook has changed its company name to Meta in October last year. Since then, their stock has not been doing well. In the last 3 months, their stock has gone down more than 40%. And I think Mark Zuckerberg has lost more than $50 billion. Then yesterday I said, oh my goodness, Meta Era, if India 2.0, rebooting towards Meta Era, I was praying to Lord Shiva and Buddha saying, I hope it doesn't go towards Meta, the Facebook company, but the Meta, the technology era. So that was my first prayer. And then obviously, you can sense I flew all the way from Boston, 20 hours, landed here, I'm going back straight. That means it's midnight in Boston, I'm a bit jet lagged. So if I sound sleepy, you should blame my jet lag. Not that I don't want to be an active speaker per se. Now, the title of the talk, we were asked to speak on future of liberal democracy and role of technology and demography. I will stick to the future of liberal democracy and bit of technology. First, because this topic is so vast, first let me start with an example where democracy and technology meet. In the case of war in Ukraine, I'm sure you all have watched in the news where a son in Ukraine, because there are several million Ukrainians in Russia also. A son in Ukraine calls his father in Russia, saying that now the Russian army has destroyed our house, is destroying our village. The father doesn't believe it. Father says, no, I'm watching Russian television. There the Russian soldiers are treating you very well. They're doing none of this. And the niece talks to her aunt in Russia, saying these things are happening, but the aunt in Russia refused to believe. So you can clearly see, technology does not necessarily mean protection or promotion of democracy. Technology can be used to harm and, in fact, prevent democracy and freedom. Because the Russia, Putin has used news media and technology in such a way the Russian people actually believe what the government is telling them. So that's why there's 80% support for, the Ukraine war, and Putin has 80% approval rating. With that, I think Joe Biden could win the 2000, yes, in November as well as 2014. So he has more approval rating than American president, or I think any president anywhere in the world. So with this misuse of technology, it raises the issue. If India 2.0 politics, how will India use technology, for or against people, or for or against democracy? Now, with that example in mind, let me first answer this question. Is democracy in decline? The simple answer is yes. Rajdeep ji talked about in the last 20 years, there's been a lot of progress and usage of social media in improving democracy. But Freedom House, which comes out with Freedom Index every year, says that freedom has been declining in the world for 16 consecutive years. And also there are many other research has come out saying democracy is regressing for almost 2 decades. Now we all know Samuel Huntington's book, The Third Wave, which showed linear progression of democratic system where more and more countries, from first wave to second wave to third wave, democratic system increased around the world. But in the last 2 decades, it has regressed fewer number of countries are adopting democracy. In fact, more number of countries are adopting autocratic system. So clearly in the world now, in the future also, there is a divide between democracy and autocracy. Now, with this clash that's going on, in the autocratic side, China is leading, Russia is leading. And not just what we call China model is considered popular and is being followed by many countries in the Middle East and many countries in Africa. Even few countries in Europe and Asia are trying to emulate Chinese model of what they call autocratic capitalism or development without democracy. So this is a fact. Now, not just they are following or emulating the autocratic system, but they are buying technology from China to repress its own citizens. Like Putin or Russia has successfully misused technology to mislead people in Russia about Ukraine war. Many of these countries are buying technology from China. We know that China is exporting tools like firewall, like facial recognition, and especially social credit system, which are used and manipulated to control its citizens. And all these autocratic governments have formed an alliance of sort now. So this is a fact. So yes, there has been a decline of democracy in the last 2 decades. However, the question is it the end of liberal democracies? Here, I would like to say no, for following reasons. Yes, in the short term, autocratic system might be efficient, but in the long run, it cannot sustain. As the British Lord Acton said in the 19th century, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Look at President Putin of Russia as an example. Absolute power corrupting absolutely. In broad daylight, an independent country is invaded, and Ukrainian people are, humiliated, and Ukraine is destroyed. And as a Tibetan myself, who suffered a lot during and after the occupation of Tibet, I find it a bit, unacceptable. Even though Russia might have security concerns about NATO, but to inflict so much pain and destruction upon Ukrainians with utter disregard to humanity and morality is unbearable. Hence, I will make an argument that war in Ukraine is a turning point in the rejuvenation of democracy and freedom in the world. Now people around the world see what autocratic system can do. Comparatively, democratic system might be inefficient and even messy at times, but in the long run, only democracy protects freedom. Democracy is not an end in itself, but a means to the ultimate end of good and accountable governance. This is true domestically, but increasingly true internationally as well. Because we live in an interdependent world, our fates are interconnected. We know for a fact that what is happening in Ukraine is affecting all of us. Just look at the price of gas and petrol. The idea of economics and trade alone guiding globalization was always a dead end. Similarly, democracy and development are interdependent. Food and freedom are interconnected. One cannot do without the other. The interdependent model is more sustainable in the long run. Now let me conclude with the question, where does India fit in this democracy versus autocracy debate? Compared to China, India follows the model of development with democracy, whereas China makes the argument for development without democracy. So India's success will be a success of democracy. If India fails, it is a win for China. Then not only just in the Middle East and Africa, but even in Asia, including in South Asia, many might follow the Chinese model of democracy, development without democracy. However, the recent development in Pakistan and Sri Lanka indicate that the Chinese model does not necessarily lead to sustainable economy. Finally, for these regions, in Politics 2.0, I recommend that India should reboot to meta era with development with democracy mantra. With the blessings of Lord Buddha and Lord Shiva, it is karmic destiny that democratic model will succeed. Shukriya, Jai Jagat, Jai Bharat, Jai Tibet.